So that's the overview there. And when I say metaparadigmatic, the reason this is important for the concept of being a peacemaker is because of the slide deck we were just looking at, those 31 problems that come with being stuck in an ideology. Okay. That's definitely something that you do not want to do or be in, regardless of what those are. It doesn't matter what they are. Doesn't matter what they are. It can be the most correct propositions that can all come straight from the mouth of Jesus. Okay. But Jesus even said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He did not say, here's a list of beliefs. See? And the list of beliefs that we have constitute idolatry over and above following Jesus as the way and worshiping God, not having other gods before him. Follow the way. Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And the interesting thing that I want to point out is if you look at, say, Matthew 5 and compare it with James chapter 3, and you find these similarities, these certain things keep popping up in groups and clusters like this, okay? Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Interestingly, over in Jude, if you want peace, because blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be called the children of God. If you want peace, James 3:17 says, the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable. It almost sounds like a prerequisite. And so I took the verse and I put those two things in bullet points like that so that we can see it gives you an order there. It's first pure, then peaceable. So if you look at the last time we met, this is session 7. If you look at session 6 from almost 2 weeks ago, we didn't do one last week because of the debate and we were in Tennessee, that sort of stuff. But if you look at, yeah, it looks like an order of things. So you would want to look at that session and what we said on, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, and realize that if you want to have peace, if you want to be a peacemaker, then you definitely want to pay close attention to blessed are the pure in heart, that session that we covered last time. Okay, so it's Beatitudes part 6. Blessed are the pure in heart. The wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated. Kind of reminds you of the end of 2 Timothy 2. Okay, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. So mercy shows up here, just like blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. It almost sounds like James over here was listening to Jesus when Jesus was preaching the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' inaugural sermon. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. The fruit of righteousness. So you might think, oh, I'm sowing righteousness or I'm sowing appropriate actions. And that's not wrong. But it almost sounds to me, if you look at the construction of Matthew 5 and some of these, it almost sounds like being merciful and pure in heart is the fruit of appropriateness, of right actions, of righteousness. Okay? If you're hungering and thirsting after righteousness, the fruit of righteousness is mercy and purity. And so you're sowing that in peace. You're sowing mercy and purity in peace to make peace. So this would definitely, in my opinion, be worth meditating on, just the comparison of these two passages. Maybe zoom out on James chapter 3 and look at the rest of the chapter. We're going to look at James chapter 4 here in a second too, because I think that is important as well. In James chapter 4, now remember, we're talking about being peacemakers, okay? Being peacemakers. So in James chapter 4, says, from whence come wars and fightings among you? Doesn't sound very peaceful. And what we're getting at is this. What we're getting at is that the resolution to this is humility, being humble. From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not even hence? Even of your lust that war in your members? Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain, ye fight and war, yet ye have not because ye ask not. It's the scarcity mentality. So scarcity mentality is mammon, the god of mammon. That's scarcity economics. Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. So being an enemy with God doesn't sound very peaceful. So if you want to be a peacemaker, maybe friendship with the world's not the way to go. And then you would want to look at, well, what is the world doing? Bob Jones Sr. used to say, figure out which way the world is going and then go against it. Somebody just asked me that today. What's it mean when the Bible talks about the world? And you don't want to be on autopilot, being in default operations mode, just doing what all the world does, just taking all your cues from the world, being a product of the world. And some of the stuff is just, let's just presume there's not even any sin going on, okay? Now we know there is, but just presume there's not even any sin going on. There's just people waking up, eating meals, going to work, and they're just living this unmindful life, this unaware life. They're sleepwalking through it. They're not aware. They're not awake. There's nothing like that going on. And the idea is to not just be in default mode operation. Don't be a zombie. Don't walk through life asleep. Don't just take your cues from those around you, okay? When John was writing his letters to the church in Laodicea, he said, you're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm. Blah, okay? Now, Laodicea did not have any of its own natural springs, okay? But over in Colossae, there were cold springs in Colossae. And so because of the Roman aqueducts and all that, they built all these aqueducts and they actually channeled the water from the cold springs in Colossae over to Laodicea. And in Laodicea, by the time the water got there, it wasn't cold anymore. It's lukewarm. It's like it's nice and fresh and wonderful when you get it in Colossae. It's not when you get it in Laodicea, because it's been traveling through these aqueducts and been baked in the sun and all this lukewarm. Likewise, over in Hierapolis, they had hot springs. The hot springs are being aqueducted into Laodicea as well. So you got hot water coming in from Hierapolis, from the hot springs, cold water coming from Colossae, and by the time they get to Laodicea, it's all lukewarm. You can't enjoy the hotness, you can't enjoy the coldness anymore. It's just nasty, okay? Kind of like stagnant water. And that's what it's like to be a friend of the world. You're not close enough to anything real to still have a temperature to you, you know? I mean, you want a ice cream that's been sitting out on the table for 4 hours, or do you want stuff right out of the freezer? Do you want a steak that just came off the grill? You want one that's been, sitting on the table for a day and a half, okay? It's the same idea. People associate, they think that being cold is being worldly, and being lukewarm is kind of like going between. They think the text is saying, oh, be all of the world or all of God. Don't just kind of ride the fence. It's not saying that at all, okay? And in the scenario that's being given, cold is good and hot is good, okay? Because it's got its temperature from somewhere else. It's not just absorbing the ambientness of what's around it. And don't be a friend of the world. Don't just absorb the ambient worldliness around you. Whatever the world's programs are, whatever it's got going on, you're walking through what it has to offer just like a zombie. That's not what we want to do. We want to be awake, walk through the world with full awareness. Great passage, great timing for a great passage. Jesus Christ is the Savior, says Ephesians 5:14. Wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. That's great. As a matter of fact, whenever the issue of worldliness comes up in the future, I think I'm just going to think of that verse, because that's one of the fastest ways to say that. Do you think that the scriptures say in vain that the spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Now this is interesting because Calvinists have this doctrine called unconditional election, and that's one of their so-called doctrines of grace, where the grace of election is given unconditionally. But here it's very clear that grace here is given on the condition. It's not unconditional here. It's given on the condition of humility. Therefore, submit yourselves to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee. He will flee from you. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. I always think of Alexander Scorby saying that part of the verse for some reason. And there's a place in 1st or 2nd Peter where he says, humble yourselves before God. And it's also the same Greek conjugation as the phrase save yourselves in Acts 2:40. But you're not supposed to say that, okay? Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh to you. So humility, all right, this over here, James 4, these guys are not peacemakers, okay? They got problems. And so to get the grace that leads to peace, which he just talked about in the previous chapter, because this was chapter 3, same book, James chapter 3, to get the peace, to be able to be a peacemaker, that the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable. Got to get a hold of that purity. And along with that purity, there's a humility component there. Okay. So if you're writing down like things to focus on to become a peacemaker, those are some of the ones you want to look at. That purity. What's the fruit of righteousness? How do I humble myself and submit myself to God? So you want to look at those kinds of things.